thank you everybody for joining. Good evening. Habari za jioni from Germany, Erlangen. And thank you for joining us today. We, the Tanzania Network, are happy that you're interested in our today's NetTalk topic. We are going to discuss the effect that Tanzania experienced through the Nobel Peace Prize of Literature being awarded to one Abdulrazak Gurnah, who is originally from Zanzibar. And for that sake, I'm going to be the moderator of today's talk. My name is Aneth Lwakatare. I live in Erlangen and also is part of the Tanzania network. And today I have Neema, who is currently in Dar es Salaam, and Mohammed, who is in Germany. And they're going to be my partners today on discussing on this topic. Neema, karibu sana. Mohammed, karibu sana. And with further ado, please, Neema, introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and your relation to literature, Tanzanian literature, just in a few words.
Thank you very much, Aneth. My name is Neema Komba. As you've already introduced me, I do three things. I am first and foremost an author and a poet. I have two books. My first one is See Through the Complicated, which is a poetry collection. And my second one is Mektildi's Kapinga, The Silent Hero, which is a nonfiction story, autobiographical about a woman who was fighting cancer for 12 years in Tanzania. Second thing I do is I'm a doctoral researcher at Hanken School of Economics, where I study entrepreneurship in the context of corruption. And I also am an entrepreneur and I run a small factory here in Dar es Salaam.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So the writing is for you not just a hobby, but it's something that you're investing time in. And I mean, the books you have published, maybe you can also later share a few links on how we can access those books, those two books. But before I move to Mohammed, what are the characteristics, or what defines a Tanzanian author, a poet, a writer?
Wow, that's a very loaded question. What defines a Tanzanian author? I suppose a Tanzanian author defines themselves. I don't really think there are certain characteristics. You could be born in Tanzania, you could be writing about Tanzania, and you could be from the diaspora, but originating from Tanzania. There are so many ways you can define that, but I think ultimately it's what the author defines themselves. I don't think there is one blanket statement of who a Tanzanian writer is. If they write and they say they're Tanzanian writers, I will go with it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I mean, the background of the question, maybe Mohammed, you might also want to reflect on this after you have introduced yourself, is, I mean, there have been discussion on the identity of Abdulrazak, born in Zanzibar, but left Tanzania in the 1960s, has been living in Europe for that time. But then we're hearing, oh, he won a Nobel Prize, he's suddenly Tanzanian. And so, Mohammed, what is your take on this? Because, I mean, we see that politicians have acknowledged his achievement as one of us Tanzanian. What is your take on this?
First of all, I think they are right in reclaiming Abdulrazak Gurnah as being one of our own, because he is one of our own in each and every definition that we can define identity. It is historical enough that his main theme actually in his novels is also about crisis of identity.
Yes, Mohammed, Neema, thank you again for joining. And let's start where we stopped, Mohammed. We were addressing the question of identity and how the reaction has been in Tanzania. So please catch up where you ended.
Actually, I was saying that those Tanzanians, including both in mainland and Zanzibar, who are reclaiming Abdulrazak Gurnah, do have every right to do so. In every definition of the identity when it comes to Abdulrazak Gurnah. He was born in Zanzibar. He was reared, taken care of in Zanzibar. That means growing up in Zanzibar, studying in Zanzibar, and then moved from Zanzibar when he was about 19 or 20 years old to England. So a person like that, you can never deprive his right or his birthright that he is from Zanzibar. He is a Zanzibari by hook and crook, that we can say so. So those who claim to be theirs, it is truly that he is theirs. He is ours, actually. I am one among them. I am a Zanzibari, born and raised in Zanzibar, came to Germany about 11 years ago when I was already 30 plus something years. So there is no one who could take this from me that I'm not a Zanzibari. In this case also, because now Zanzibar for many, many years, even by the time that Abdulrazak Gurnah was departing to England, was already in the union with Tanganyika, that makes to be Tanzania. And as long as this part of identity, of course, we are in Zanzibar having that same definition of identity, Christ of identity. We're having, even before leaving Zanzibar to here, we're already having that Christ of identity. Whether do I represent myself as a Zanzibari or as a Tanzanian? That is another story. But then, of course, that doesn't in any way deprive us of our birthright. So I saw and I still see the uproar in the social media in both camps. In the camp which I do belong, in which we are reclaiming and of course showing all the pleasure and taking pride of Abdulrazak Gurnah's winning to this winning. And for those who want to tell us though, how dare you try to reclaim a person whom you chased from his country yourself, and whom you didn't take a notice all of that time. And now once he has been announced to be a Nobel Prize winner, and then you say he is yours. How shameful you are. That is what they want to tell us in this thing. And I think this art of communication, we call in Swahili msuto, this msuto is not being directed to us as citizens, us as the Zanzibaris or Tanzanians. It is directed to the government apparatus, to the system, to the establishment, which is concerned with those laws, with those things, what happened in 1964 that made Abdulrazak Gurnah and others like him, who are so many actually, here in diaspora, here in Europe, in Americas, in the Gulf, in Arabia, I mean, in the India subcontinent and many other places. There are so many people like him who were forced by either physically or by circumstances to leave their beloved nation and to wander to the world to see, to look for their safety and to get something out of this world, as what Gurnah himself is always saying about that. They didn't come here empty-handed. Yeah. They come here to the world they were having something already. I mean, some of them, they are the one who even built some Arabian nations like Oman and other places. These were the people who came from Zanzibar, from them, and with everything in their hands, knowledge in their brain, and of course with their expertise and with everything, and they built those nations. And for those who came to Europe here, they also did come here empty-handed. They had brain, they had experience, they had a story to tell, to share. This very story, it is the story which made Abdulrazak to win this Nobel Prize. A story of an immigrant, the migrant, a story of a person who was dislocated and then relocated, who was disowned and then owned, who was belonging and then looking for the new identity. And as he says in his books, I mean, of course, listening to his interviews, is a person who is living in suspension.
Yeah.
That is what coming this definition of crisis of identity, that not British enough to be called British, and for others, not Tanzania enough, not Zanzibari enough to be called Zanzibari, which is wrong. No one.
But Mohammed, I mean, one of the reasons I assume is also that there has been a political debate on the dual citizenship, and without looking at people who migrated because of I mean, we are here, you are here, and not everybody is forced to leave Tanzania, but there are people freely migrated from Tanzania and have expertise. But I sometimes feel, and maybe Neema, what is your take on this? Do you think Tanzania as a country appreciates enough the work of the Tanzanian diaspora, regardless in what country they are?
Is it to me or to Neema?
Neema first.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Although Mohammed might have been the best person, didn't you write the crimes of living outside your country sometime?
You read it?
Yeah, yeah. I think there is sometimes there is appreciation when they feel like you're contributing directly, and then sometimes there is maybe contemptive, and I would go as far as saying for you leaving your country and being somewhere else. So people in the diaspora appreciate it. I wouldn't go as far as saying yes, but I wouldn't say no completely. That there are moments when you have value, and if you've made it to the level of winning the Nobel Prize, that value becomes very apparent, and you get a call from the president, and you get hailed everywhere. You're just hustling and unabeba boxi somewhere. They don't necessarily see your value the same way. So yeah, if they think you're valuable, then you're valued. If they don't necessarily think you're valuable, even though your remittances make, you bring a lot of money to Tanzania as people in the diaspora, but still that is not necessarily seen. So then the question is very complicated, I think.
Yes.
To answer.
Yeah. Thank you. Before I go back to Mohammed, because I know he has written something on that.
Can I add that? Can I add there?
Yes, please.
For me, the line is very clear. I mean, between who is to take this msuto and who is to take the pride in this case. I mean, for me, if you listen to the heartbeat of many Tanzanians, in this case of many Zanzibaris, when it comes to this specific case of Abdulrazak Gurnah, which of course have raised this debate again, or maybe re-raised it, you see that where the line is. The line is for normal wananchi, for the citizens, they have been always close, understanding, and of course, taking their brothers and sisters who are in diaspora as theirs. There have never been this connection between them. They've never been this what they call the ugeni. I mean the feeling that there is this exclusion or feeling that you don't belong to them. Today I read the interview that Abdulrazak did with The Guardian. I think it was yesterday. Today it was published. It was published today. And in the last line, he was speaking about something. I wish if I can open and share it here with you, reading line to line to what he said about that thing, about the connection to the people. I mean, to the people that are there in his home country. He was asked whether does he feel welcomed in his own country. He said that, I mean, the first time he came back after 17 years, came back to Zanzibar after 17 years living in England, it was terrifying. 17 years is a long time. And of course, as with a lot of people who relocate or who move away from their homes, there are all sorts of issues of guilt, possibly shame. not knowing for sure that you have done the right thing, but also not knowing what they will think of you. You know, that you have changed. You are no longer one of us. But in fact, none of that happened. You step off the plane and everybody's happy to see you.
Yeah.
That's the people. That are your own people. They don't care if you've left there. They don't care that you haven't been with them in the country. So this matter of that the country is that if you take another paper from another nation, taking a paper of German here, being called a German by papers, or being called a British by papers, for my brothers and sisters, they don't even take care. They don't even care about that. It is the system, the establishment, the government, which now want to disown you, to disassociate you with your own country. So it is where the Msuto is. So the line is very clear. Our people, I mean, because your question, Aneth, was about whether Tanzania is appreciating its diaspora.
Yeah.
Tanzania is not only the government. The government, there are only maybe 200,000 people, the whole structure. There are 68 million people out there who are also Tanzanians. And who are the Tanzanians for me?
Yeah.
And they do appreciate us.
So what you are saying, Mohammed, just to put it short, personal identity and how fellow Tanzanians see Abdulrazak is not necessarily what we see as formal nationality of that he owns.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank
you very much. But I mean, so he felt welcome. I mean, Neema, as a poet, as an author, did you know him before? And if you didn't, or if you knew, how far does his books serve as an inspiration for your own work? But also for I would say for an inspiration for the whole, I would say for the whole writers community in Tanzania.
I wouldn't say I knew him for a very long time or something like that. I actually just started reading him recently. A friend of mine gifted me a late Christmas present, one of his books, Afterlives, and that's my first encounter with him this May. So I wouldn't say I knew him before, and so in that manner, his work hasn't served as inspiration for my work in any way. However, reading him has been a pleasure. His characters feel very familiar, like people, even though he writes about times that I wasn't here, but the characters still feel very familiar. Like you'd go to Zanzibar and you would find these people, or you even find them here in Dar probably. So that part of it felt very, very familiar. So, and yeah, so I really enjoy the work in that way. In terms of his literature being inspirational to other writers, I don't want to serve as a mouthpiece for the rest of the writers, so I don't know what they have read and what they haven't read. But from like if the feeling I got last Saturday when we were having this African Writers Conference, and there was a lot of writers from Tanzania, is that while they were overjoyed and very inspired by his winning the Nobel Prize for Literature, most of them hadn't encountered him before. But now that he has won and his name is everywhere, there will be more push for his work. I think people will be now engaging with his work more. I think there weren't even many of his books in bookstores. People were looking for them immediately after the announcement and they couldn't find them anywhere. So that is a phenomenon, but that just speaks about the distribution of literature in Tanzania specifically, not just for writers from the diaspora, but also for writers locally. The distribution could improve. So the books aren't easily available, even at the National Library where everybody could access. So we need some work to do there.
Yeah. Thank you, Neema. Mohammed, Neema is saying, I mean, she had the first encounter through a friend, through the book, which is just last year. And having attended and moderated the African Writers Conference, you also mentioned that a few knew of his name, knew of his work. Now, Mohammed, can you also, understand why most of the Germans media focused on calling it a surprise for him to win, in comparison, for instance, with Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who has been on the list for a while now. And what is your take on this?
Of course, he was not that famous when it comes to the caliber of those called the African writers. Actually, those who we grew up knowing them through their books, because then their books were made available to us through the curriculum that were having in our schools in East Africa. For example, we knew I first met Ngugi wa Thiong'o about 2 years ago when he came here to Germany. But then I already knew him from his books many. I grew up with him, okay, so with his books in my house, but then we are reading him. Of course, Mbena Osumane and many others from the West, Chinua Achebe, Mariam Ba, Kamara, and others. We knew them, but then we grew up with them. That was not the case of Abdulrazak Gurnah. His books were not known to us, to most people among us. I knew some of them because they coming from Zanzibar, where he comes from as well. So there is connectivity that we are having from the beginning. But even that there in Zanzibar, I can say that not that every person knows him. He left there many years ago. He just came back 17 years later, and then after that, maybe every 2 or 3 years, when he was able to come to visit his parents, his relatives, sisters, and of course those who are living there. So he was not known in that sense of being popular, famous, or things like this. But then his books speak of himself, and those who want to know him now, they can know him through the book, and of course they, as Neema said, can relate to the story, to the people, to the characters who are there, because then they were the people that you meet them in everyday life. So in this case, so now coming to the question about why maybe here media in Germany they say it is a surprise. It is actually a surprise because, of course, he was not known. He was not that famous. He was not in the list that was in our heads in every time that the Nobel Prize is being called on. We believe that we expect that this time it is Ngugi, this time with this, and that never happened. Now it has happened to be Abdulrazak Gurnah. So yes, it was a surprise. They don't lie about that. For himself also was a surprise. If you listen to his interview, it was a shock actually. Even they believed from the beginning that are you not joking me? Is it a prank thing like this? Yeah, so yeah, of course it was a surprise not only for us but also for him.
Yes, thank you. I think that is something that has to be mentioned. It's not a surprise just to us observers, but also to him as well, who actually won. And so, just to follow up on that, Mohammed, so what impact do you think has his winning have on the way African literature or East African literature is perceived here in Germany? Because that shows that the East African literature is hardly known here. Do you think this might have an impact?
I very much think so. I very much think that now there'll be some follow-up, there'll be some interview, there'll be some research, there'll be some studies done on East African literature, and all thanks to this prize, to Gurnah, that he's won this prize. Now he has put our region, our literature, East African literature, on the spotlight. Now many people will now want more to talk about that. We'll even do some research on Zanzibar, on his place. One thing that people doesn't maybe who don't know that Zanzibar in particular. So sorry, Neema, that I'm speaking about Zanzibar many times, but in this case, Zanzibar in particular has produced many good writers in the history. Actually, if you look even from the 80s, 1800 there. If you look at the books, if you look at the writings, there are many good writers there, and even in Swahili, Swahili writers, there are many writers who have been writing and also been known in their own spectrum, in their own sphere. But now that the international award has been awarded to a Zanzibari, to the writer who is writing about in very particular the East African region. Now, I think, and I'm sure that people now are keen to know what is in there, what people do think there, and what are their views on the world, on their, because one thing that I've said before we go on, that the East African region, we talk about the coastal of East Africa, has been a global point for many, many years.
Yes.
It has been a global point in which, in that sense, it's not something, in this case, not surprise for a Zanzibari or a person living in that area, which is so long. I mean, the East Coast, which has been for many hundred years, receiving people, exchanging cultures and things like this, for them to know the world, for them to express their feelings and their connection to the world. So now people will learn about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mohammed. Neema, you mentioned the conference that was held last week, if I'm not mistaken, and having writers there, authors there. I mean, I assume there is a different kind of reaction towards Abdulrazak winning, and you also mentioned the challenges that writers authors face. And we see, I mean, at least one of the interviews I listened to today, it was a German interview with a professor from the University of Bayreuth, saying that, I mean, maybe one of the reasons that people do not know his work is that the books he writes are merely available in English. So they have not been translated into other languages. That might be also a problem or a challenge. Now my question is the reaction of the writers, but also does language matter? Does language matter for a Tanzanian writer? Is it strategic to write in Swahili or to write in English?
Of course, language matters, but first I will answer the reaction part. Or before I answer, I should say, Mohammed, I have this beach background because I'm dreaming of Zanzibar right now. So I can go tomorrow. Yeah, but yeah, so what's the reaction? The reaction is absolutely amazing. Everybody was in awe and everybody was inspired. It felt like if one of us can win such a prestigious prize, there is a chance for the rest of us, you know. So this is very inspiring for writers, including myself, to keep working at our craft and do well. But of course, language matters. When you speak of Tanzanian literature, of course, Swahili plays a big part in that literature. And it might have actually been one of the reasons why he's not known so well. And I hope that we will translate his work to Swahili, because if we keep it in English, only a fraction of Tanzanians in Zanzibar and in the mainland will actually know about what he writes. So I hope we can actually translate his work. Yeah, so, but language really matters. And I think, and when we speak of language, it's not just Swahili, because there are hundreds of languages in Tanzania. And these are the ways. Language is the instrument, it's the window, it's the fabric or the thread that holds every culture together. And so you cannot speak about literature without speaking about language. And if you're going to speak about language, Swahili is very, very important. And if you're a Tanzanian writer who doesn't write in Swahili, you're definitely not popular because the ability of many people to read your work is limited to the language that they know and express themselves. But it's also a matter of expression as well. How well can you express certain ideas and feelings and in your mother tongue compared to a foreign tongue? That's always a limitation that even I face as a writer. Whether to express, if I have to express something, how does this translate in English? or if I'm looking at a market and people are talking and all the mannerisms they're doing, and the way Swahili kind of expresses itself in so many ways, and it's in the nonverbal cues as well. How do I translate that to English, and I'm writing in English? It's always a complicated matter, and always a matter of, I don't know, a lot of maybe decision making, what to do with the text that is not originally happening in the language. So for me, that is always an interesting case. But yeah, sometimes I choose not to translate nothing and just write in English, in Swahili, and not think about all these other things that come with translation. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the listeners and viewers, you can send your question via the chat. Please do so. Mohammed, we have a question, and you mentioned that Zanzibar has produced a lot of writers, I mean, for ages. Now the question is, why that? Or is there a comparison to Tanzania mainland? Or, but also give us a reflection on what you consider the writing and reading tradition, culture of Tanzanians.
Of Tanzanians, I cannot speak much more than what is about also the huge land of Tanzania mainland, whereby I don't have any experience of. Actually, I have to be honest on that. I just lived there for 3 years when I was doing my degree, and then come back to Zanzibar, where I come from. But on Zanzibar, I can say the reason on why we are still having many writers till now, actually, it is because of we had this culture that we inherited from the system of education that we had earlier, not what we have now, what we had earlier. There was such a good system of education in which people were oriented from the very beginning to be keen readers, to be keen knowledge seekers. We have got the tendency to call Quran class or madrasa, in which you are being sent when you are even 4 years old, or sometimes 5 years old, sitting there listening to the people who are reading Quran and other series of hadith, things like this. And then this, you grow up with that. And then at the age of 7, you go to school. And then at that time now, you already, when it comes to the experience with books, with listening, hearing about the knowledge, you are already, in that sense, rich, in that sense. Because at 7 years old, you have already crammed some verses, and of course, that very in the language that you don't understand. It is Arabic, actually. That makes your brain to be somehow in different level, in this sense. And then you go to school whereby you learn those things. So this culture has helped us in many, many years to be very good in seeking knowledge, very good in writing, very good in telling stories in this sense. That is why you find that there are many good writers and many good books written in Zanzibar by Zanzibaris, or maybe written by Zanzibaris who are living in diaspora. We have a good example of someone like Professor Ahmed Mohammed, who was there in Bayreuth.
Yeah,
He was a professor there. He has written so far 65 books. 65 books in Kiswahili, in novel, in drama, in poetry, and other writings, I mean, academic writings. But these 65 books are all of them, of course, some of them, yeah, all of them in Kiswahili, all of them about novels, about the things. He's not alone, but he's one among the exceptional, I mean, many people that he has written. There is this Mabati Cornell Prize, which has been awarded since 2015. It is for East Africa, actually, for the Swahili speakers. There is no any single year where where there is no Zanzibar winner. So if you take this in average, a small place like Zanzibar, if you compare to the whole of East Africa, and every year there is a winner of this Mabati, you can see what the comparison is when it comes to the writers and to the readers. Yeah. So that is one of the things. And the other thing is that because, as I said earlier, being the people of the place which has been the melting point of cultures, of civilizations, of histories for many, many years that make us to be people who have a lot to say to others. But then we have seen a lot to these people coming, going out, coming there. We ourselves, we are a mixture of everything. So in this matter, give us maybe the chance or maybe the ability to be able to tell stories, because we are receiving these stories from many, many cultures and then melting them there in one pot. That makes to be us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I mean, Neema, this African Writers Conference, I think also it serves as a platform to, to give young writers a platform also to not only to introduce the work, but kind of to foster ideas, I would say, the work. A few words on that and how it aims at least shaping or facilitating Tanzanian literature in general, or African literature in general.
I think what the African Writers Conference did was create a platform for conversation. Now it rotates every year, it rotates in a different country. It started in Nigeria, moved to Kenya, then it was in Zambia, then in Tanzania, and next it's going to be in Cameroon. And so it rotates and gives the local writers the opportunity to interact among themselves, but as well as with other writers from other parts of the continent. And it's also done online. So I think what is important is this conversation and connection, because oftentimes the connectivity between African countries is very, very tricky. So this gives a very unique platform in that manner for people to be able to connect. And in terms of promoting literature, I think it's important to also say that Tanzanian literature and African literature, if there is even a word for like African literature, because it's so diverse, is very diverse. And while there's also a lot of oral tradition involved in our literary history that hasn't been able to be captured in books, there's drama, there's a lot of genres within literature. So it's very, very interesting that what this will bring, but how we could use, for example, oral traditions to promote literature that is written, such as Gurnah's work. So that would be quite interesting if there'll be initiatives like that.
Yeah. Are you both aware of websites, links of where we can find more information about African or Tanzanian writers and their work? If you do, please, it would be lovely if you could share those informations, the website, the links with us. We have a question that addresses.
Interesting you say that.
Yeah, Neema, please. Yeah.
I said, interesting you say that there's been an initiative to actually curate all the writers, and I am falling behind on it because I collected a lot of information and haven't put it on a website yet.
Okay.
But I hope I'll be able to share it with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I think, Daniela, we have noted that. But there is a question. Are there efforts? Because I think both of you mentioned the lack of accessibility to literature to some people in Tanzania, not only in terms of language, but also in terms of availability of books. So have there been any efforts, whether by the government or any civil society organization, to kind of spread Tanzanian literature also in rural areas?
To Neema.
Anyone who wants to go first?
Living away from my home for about a decade now or more, I cannot speak much about that than what I see in the social media, taking as a barometer of what is happening underground there. And I see some efforts actually on social media. For example, in Dar es Salaam, they have got, they have even formulated their sort of association, right? Association, called Uwaridi, Umoja wa Waandishi wa Riwaya za Riwaya, then Umoja wa Waandishi wa Riwaya, the Association of the Novel Writers, in which they've got such a sort of a fund. They support each other in this fund to publish novels. And this novel, they do everything about it. I mean, from the first stage of writing, helping in writing, editing, proofreading, getting to the publisher, cover design, and then publicizing, getting to market and marketing. And in this sense, I think it is one among, maybe not many, but at least one among the reasons we can say there are some efforts, local efforts by people themselves there, getting people to learn about their own literature. There are also more now bookshops than it was earlier. There are now many big bookshops there. We have even the big publishers like Mkuke na Nyota have been publishing books written by Tanzanians there in Tanzania. And of course, I think in that matter, I can say that there are something is happening in Tanzania now in that case. Yeah. In Zanzibar in particular, of course, there is also such efforts. For example, myself, I have a self-publishing company called Zanzibar Daima Publishing, in which I try to publish, not to try, I do publish actually, books of Zanzibar writers particularly, though sometimes they publish from outside Zanzibar, but then many for Zanzibar writers. And these books are being available now also in online, of course, also in Tanzania. Because when we talk about the people there in Tanzania, it's very important to say that when we publish for online, that means then we exclude the Tanzanian market. Not many people in Tanzania can go online to buy books. That is why now I have found the way in which I do publish a book here online, but then the same copy I send to the local publisher in Tanzania, publishing there with a very cheaper price, and then one can buy a book there. So that is not enough, but I think it is something that is happening now to make people see and touch and feel the literature written by their own there. We didn't have this ability, this capability about 10 years ago, but now things are changing actually.
Yeah, Mohammed, you mentioned that. I mean, I think it's wise what you're doing in Zanzibar, because I think we with this online bookshops and all that, one must also acknowledge that it's not accessible to everyone back home. But I also mentioned of growing up with Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And I think I also grew up, I know almost every book of his. And I think one of the reasons is not because I went to a bookshop and bought it, but rather it was part of the school curriculum. For those who did English in the A level, English literature, English, and then we had phonology, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We were forced, it was part of the curriculum, we were forced to read these books. And as much as we are forced to read them, we enjoyed reading them. So, I mean, would that not be an alternative to a platform for local writers, authors to?
Of course.
Please. I think you know where I'm trying to get. Yeah.
I've seen your point already. It is actually, it is. Because the people may speak about the language barrier, that since Tanzania are not English speakers, as I am not actually, then sending them books in English, maybe because Abdulrazak has written all of his books in English, then it would be easier for him to be coming back home, to be known there by his own people. But as you have said, Aneth, very, very well put, that we knew and we have known the culture of Nigeria 1800 years ago. I mean, because then we were taught by Chinua Achebe from his books. We were taught by the West African struggle against colonization by Sembena Osumane from his books. We've been taught about the culture of Kikuyu from Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Why? Through which language? Through English. Through English. The English that we don't have, the English that we don't speak. But when it was must for us to be speaking, to be reading, to be having it, we had it in our homes through curriculum, through this system. So if there is something, if our government now comes, the government is coming in. If the government really wants to appreciate Abdulrazak Gurnah, apart from having phone talk with him, part of having tweeting the pride for the prize, the government should take effort to have his books read in Tanzania, to make his books a part of our curriculum. In this sense, people will know Abdulrazak more and more, though now he's 73 years old, but then he'll be still living with us 100 years to come. As now Chinua Achebe, as Wole Soyinka, as Mbene Sumane, as all of others from the West have been so familiar to us. I was one time in Nairobi for my journalistic works with Deutsche Welle, and then I met a writer, Boubacar Dier from Senegal, whom I read his books earlier, and for me he was not a stranger to me because I knew what he was writing, and I told him that I know you. Yeah. So how do you know me? Tell me that how I knew him. Of course, now you know me. Because knowing the story, knowing that what somebody's writing, that it is to know not only the story but also himself. In this case, we can say that if we really want to appreciate, we really want to take pleasure and pride in which Abdulrazak has won, has gained in his life, has attained his life, then let's read him, let's read his works. And the government can do that very easy. Yes. Can tell the curriculum planner that from this year on, we want these books to be in the curriculum. Correct. And of course, that can be.
I share your opinion on that completely. And I also think maybe this might also serve as not only for him, but also for other writers. Maybe that might also push our government to look into the treasures of authors that we have back home, of poetry. Even the poetry we read in school, they were not written by Tanzanian unless it was, I mean, so far as I remember, things might have changed since I finished high school, but I'm not sure they did. Please share the links of anything related to literature, anything that enhances or that promotes Tanzanians and Zanzibaris who write, who publish with us, so that also the participant can also visit those links and see what they can get.
Sure.
Neema?
I'm back. Yeah.
You're back on the right time, because I wanted to ask you about your beautiful Christmas present you received last year. And what is the book about? I mean, you told us you received a gift from a friend, a book written by Abdulrazak. What is it about? What is the title? And just tell us a bit. So maybe that might also motivate some of us to look for the book and read it.
Well, so the book is called Afterlives, and it's basically about someone who is forced to fight as an askari during the World War, and then returns to his community after the war. And so I think it's a very interesting tale because it goes before the war even happens, and it tells you the history of the people that are involved, the characters, and then of course goes into the war itself, and then the gist of it is what happens after. And I think it's a very interesting history really to look at, but also a very interesting story, not just history, because I think what's really important about Gurnah's work is not necessarily the history, but the story of the people and how it's interwoven into the history of Zanzibar and of Tanzania, basically. And I think that's really, really interesting.
Thank you, Neema. So yeah. Okay. So I think Neema has connection problem, but I think what she said is the book itself is a reflection on the period, not only during the German colonial rule, but also prior to the German colonial rule and during the German colonial rule. And it is worth reading, and I have started reading mine. So I would advise, or not even actually advise, but of course, I'm trying to convince everybody listening to get a copy and read, but also the other books are apparently good. I haven't had the chance to read them. Yes, Mohammed, well, having looked at the reaction in Tanzania, both political reaction, we have heard of the phone calls he received, the invitation he has received. Just I think today, if not yesterday morning, there was a discussion that was linked with a dual citizenship in terms of identity, nationality. But well, we have also looked at the culture of reading and how much writers, how many talented writers we have back home, and the challenges that some do face in getting the work acknowledged, but also getting the work on the market. And at the same time, we have also looked at how far we know more about authors from other African countries than authors born in Tanzania. Now, I think the big question here is, regardless of the source of the author, what role does literature play? Now, I know it's a very general question, but what role does literature play in their society, in Zanzibar?
Actually, yeah, sure. Actually, Aneth, if you look at the or the significance of literature in our life, it is so huge. It is, I mean, for those who read literature, both as an academic works and as a pleasure also, you can find out how they do mold people thinking, how they mold people's philosophy to their perspectives, world perspectives, anything like this. It is very good. I mean, it is very wonderful that you have asked this question, because then me being a person in the field of literature, is both a writer and a reader, a learner, I can say so, a learner in this field. I think much of what has happened to me, it comes to writing, when it comes to my understanding of the world, it is because of what I read.
Yeah,
it's because of what I have seen in the books. Today we are living in the culture, in the world, whereby seeing, I mean, this visual learning is more common and more, for us, much more available than other types of learning. But by that time, and I think here also in Europe, we see even that they are in that situation, they are forcing their children to read books, these paper books, not the electronic books, they called the e-books, these paper books, because in reading, you are giving your brain more works than just seeing, just receiving from the screen, because their characters, their atmosphere, their environment, their settings, and everything that you see and you create and you innovate in the books, in the writing, and that expand the knowledge, expand our view on the world and on those things. So if you, in particular, the literary works, the works written in literature, in which there is a lot of fiction, there is a lot of imagination, there is a lot of stories and things like this. It is where you can see people are now finding their own life, their own way of telling, their own way of expressing, and of course, of developing. Today, it is very awkward that I read tweets from Kaguta Museveni, in which I don't think if you read that tweets,
I
was speaking. Maybe if I can get time just now to read this tweets to our listeners here.
Museveni is the president of Uganda.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, he has been the president of Uganda since I was born. So
for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Museveni, Kaguta Museveni today, what he was tweeting about. He was tweeting about 3 hours ago. He said, all teachers should know this. I'm a person of literature and history, and I'm the one leading the crusade of having science-oriented education, because that is what life really hangs on for the last 4.5 million years. We should not debate this. Arts have a role, but have a role, but for society to survive, it must not lag behind in science and technology. Do not waste our time with off-the-point arguments. I can quote of you Shakespeare and Julius Caesar, but what will it help with curing COVID-19? Have you understood?
I haven't read that. But at least it does mention literature.
And but in which sense? In the sense that literature, it is to be read, and to be read just for funny, and not for helping any thinking creation. For him, he is supporting the science-based education. I mean, science studies. It is chemistry, physics, biology, and others. And in this sense, he wants to say that you cannot cure COVID-19 using
literature,
and others. Those cannot cure. Of course, that's what he means. For me, as a literature person, he is insulting me. He's insulting literature. And this is not what I do expect from the president, from the person like him.
Yes.
Yeah, because then,
But I think more.
Aneth, I have a name on the line. So if
Okay.
Neema, can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Neema? I mean, if you can hear us, we are actually addressing. We were actually addressing the big question here on the role literature plays in a society, and I don't know if you could catch that, but Mohammed also brought in an example of Yoram Seven's tweet and disqualifying the importance of literature and posing the importance more on science and technology, since literature cannot cure COVID-19. But I mean, what do you see as the key role that literature plays? Just in brief.
I think one of the most important things is actually maybe building the collective consciousness of the people. Literature enhances identities, creates identities, but also creates awareness about who you are as a people, what you're capable of. It can pave the way for the future, really, if I have to say that. And for Museveni to say that because literature cannot cure COVID-19, then it's important, then he must not have seen, even here in Tanzania, when things were pretty bad back in February, poets took to social media and to as a way to educate people, to talk about whatever was going on about COVID-19, to express the feelings that are bottled up inside people. So I think literature plays a very, very important role. And a country that doesn't have literature doesn't have a soul, really. That's my opinion about it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Neema. Just to summarize that for the listener. So what Neema is saying is, as much as literature itself might not be something that cures anything or solves anything, but it also a means of creating awareness. The importance of literature in this pandemic in Tanzania, by using poetry, poetry slam in whatever form, to create awareness to the people in Tanzania on the measures to be taken to protect themselves from COVID. Now we're coming to an end of our discussion, but in your own words, in Neema's words, in Mohammed's words, I think we can all agree that with Abdulrazak winning this Nobel Prize in literature, we can say it is not only acknowledging his work, but also creating a platform for young and old writers in Tanzania, but also in Africa at large, but at the same time also opening doors for African literature in Germany at least, and beyond the borders of this country, to know what we write, what we express, and at the same time also what we see our experiences has been during, for instance, using the examples of the book Afterlife, what has been our perception of the times during the colonial rule and how we have coped with that through literature. And I think that being said, I can say Dankeschön, Asante Sana. Thank you very much, Neema and Mohammed.